Before we begin, let me ask you something simple. When was the last time you were truly bored, not distracted, not scrolling, not listening to something in the background, just still? Most people can't remember. And yet, boredom, silence, emptiness used to be the birthplace of clear thinking. Today, we live surrounded by sound, notifications, news alerts, market updates, opinions, predictions, urgency. Noise is no longer something external. It lives inside us. And quietly, without announcing itself, it's making us poorer. Not just in money, but in judgment, in patience, in clarity. This video isn't about turning off your phone, or rejecting technology, or romanticizing the past. It's about understanding something far more subtle. The hidden cost of constant stimulation, and how it slowly destroys financial clarity. So let this play in the background. No pressure to focus hard. No rush, just listen. Because sometimes, the most valuable financial insight arrives in silence. There was a time when information was scarce. Prices traveled slowly. News arrived days late. Decisions were made with partial data. Ironically, people often thought more clearly. Today, information is infinite, real-time, aggressive, emotionally charged. Markets update every second. Opinions multiply every minute. Fear and excitement spread instantly. We call this being informed. But the human brain did not evolve for this. Our nervous system is ancient. It was designed for seasons, not seconds. For patterns, not streams. Financial clarity requires distance. Noise removes distance. When everything feels urgent, nothing is prioritized. When everything demands attention, wisdom disappears. And so, without realizing it, many people make financial decisions in a state of mild panic, constantly. Not fear that screams, but anxiety that hums. A low, continuous noise. Noise fragments attention. Imagine trying to read a book, but someone taps your shoulder every 30 seconds. You might still read, but you won't understand deeply. Money works the same way. Clarity doesn't come from exposure. It comes from integration. When attention is fragmented, decisions become reactive. You don't think in timelines, you think in impulses. The market goes up, excitement. The market goes down, fear. A headline appears, doubt. An influencer speaks, imitation. Noise keeps you emotionally engaged, but cognitively shallow. You feel involved, but you're not in control. Why stimulation feels productive? Here's the trick. Noise feels useful. Checking prices feels responsible. Reading news feels intelligent. Following experts feels safe. But often, it's just stimulation disguised as preparation. Your brain rewards novelty with dopamine, not wisdom. Every alert gives a small chemical reward, a sense of movement, of progress. But movement is not direction. And financial success depends far more on direction than speed. The illusion of urgency. Noise manufactures urgency. Everything feels like it must be acted on now, but wealth is rarely built in moments of urgency. It's built in long stretches of boredom. Saving is boring. Compounding is boring. Waiting is boring. Sticking to a plan is boring. Noise makes boring feel unbearable. So people trade patience for stimulation and clarity for excitement. Emotional volatility equals financial volatility. Markets move because humans move emotionally. Fear, greed, hope, regret. Noise amplifies all of it. The more stimulated you are, the harder it becomes to hold a steady, emotional state. And when emotions fluctuate, decisions follow. You buy too late, you sell too early. You change strategies mid-cycle. You abandon long-term thinking for short-term relief. Not because you're unintelligent, but because noise erodes emotional regulation. Why the calm investor has an unfair advantage. The calm investor isn't smarter, they're quieter. They consume less, react slower, decide fewer times. They let information settle. Silence gives data time to become understanding. Understanding gives confidence. Confidence reduces unnecessary action. And in finance, unnecessary action is expensive. Fees, taxes, mistakes, stress. Silence protects you from yourself. Noise shortens time horizons. One of the most damaging effects of constant stimulation is how it compresses time. When you're constantly updated, everything feels immediate. 5 minutes feels long. 1 week feels eternal. 1 year feels abstract. But wealth lives in long horizons. Noise makes long horizons emotionally invisible. You intellectually know compounding works, but emotionally, you can't feel it, so you abandon it. Silence restores the sense of time. It reminds you that meaningful things grow slowly and quietly. The financial cost you never see. The cost of noise rarely shows up as a line item. It appears as over-trading, strategy hopping, emotional exhaustion, missed compounding, decision fatigue, stress-based choices, not dramatic losses, but chronic underperformance, like a leak you never notice until years later. Noise replaces thinking with imitation. In loud environments, humans copy. It's a survival instinct. When overwhelmed, we follow signals from others. That's why trends spread so fast. Why bubbles inflate. Why crashes cascade. Silence allows independent thought, and independent thought is the foundation of asymmetric advantage. You don't need more information than others. You need more space to think than others. Why wealth often looks quiet. Notice something interesting. True wealth rarely advertises itself. It doesn't post alerts. It doesn't scream predictions. It doesn't chase attention. It compounds quietly. The loudest financial voices are often the least wealthy because noise itself has become the business. Wealth prefers silence because silence preserves clarity. Stimulation steals future energy. Constant input drains cognitive reserves. Even when you're just watching or just listening, decision quality declines when the mind is saturated. Eventually, you avoid thinking altogether. You defer decisions or outsource them blindly. Noise doesn't just affect what you decide. It affects whether you can decide at all. Clarity requires empty space. Just like muscles grow during rest, understanding grows during mental stillness. Silence isn't empty. It's fertile. It's where patterns emerge, where long-term thinking breathes, where fear loses its grip. Without silence, you're always responding, never directing. The silent erosion of judgment. There is a moment most people never notice, a moment when thinking becomes heavier, when decisions feel tiring, when certainty fades, not because things are unclear, but because the mind is crowded. This is decision fatigue, and noise accelerates it. Every headline you consume, every market update, every opinion absorbed without reflection. They don't just inform you, they tax you. The brain treats information as a form of work. Even passive consumption requires processing, filtering, emotional calibration. When stimulation is constant, the brain never completes the cycle. There is no closure, no rest, so judgment slowly degrades. Not dramatically, subtly, you become more impulsive, more risk-seeking when excited, more risk-averse when afraid. Not because your strategy changed, but because your nervous system did. Why quiet people seem lucky. You've probably noticed this. Some people appear oddly lucky with money. They're rarely stressed about markets. They don't chase trends. They don't seem rushed. When others panic, they pause. When others celebrate, they wait. It's tempting to think they know something secret. Often, they simply hear less. Their minds aren't flooded with constant stimulus, so signals stand out more clearly. They recognize when something truly matters, because everything else is quiet. Noise doesn't just add confusion, it removes contrast, and without contrast, judgment collapses. The difference between awareness and immersion. There's a difference between being aware and being immersed. Awareness is intentional. Immersion is constant. Awareness informs decisions. Immersion hijacks emotions. Many people believe they're staying informed, but they're actually bathing in volatility. They absorb market moods the way skin absorbs heat, and over time, they mistake emotional familiarity for understanding. But knowing how something feels is not the same as knowing how it works. Silence creates separation, and separation restores objectivity. Why stillness feels uncomfortable. At first, silence feels unsettling. Without stimulation, the mind looks for something to grab onto. Thoughts surface, doubts emerge, uncertainty becomes visible. That discomfort pushes people back to noise. But this discomfort is not a problem. It's a signal. It means your mind is transitioning from consumption to processing. Financial clarity often begins with discomfort, because clarity requires confronting uncertainty, not numbing it. Noise numbs. Silence reveals. The market doesn't reward constant attention. Here's a paradox. The more attention you give the market, the less it often gives back. Frequent monitoring increases emotional interference. Emotional interference increases poor timing. Poor timing erodes returns. This isn't theory, it's behavior. Long-term performance correlates strongly with how rarely decisions are made, not how quickly. Silence naturally reduces decision frequency, and fewer decisions, when made deliberately, outperform constant adjustment. Noise shrinks confidence. Confidence doesn't grow from exposure, it grows from coherence. When information aligns into a narrative you understand, noise prevents coherence. You hear conflicting opinions, opposing forecasts, contradictory advice. So confidence fractures. You hesitate, second-guess, overthink. Silence allows ideas to settle, patterns form, beliefs stabilize, and stable beliefs lead to consistent action. Wealth requires boredom tolerance. This is rarely discussed, but boredom tolerance may be one of the most important financial traits. Wealth-building phases are long and uneventful. Nothing happens most days. Noise makes this unbearable. So people create activity. They trade, adjust, intervene, not because it's necessary, but because they're uncomfortable with stillness. Silence trains boredom tolerance. It teaches you that inactivity is not failure. Often, it's progress. The quiet advantage compounds. Just like money, clarity compounds. Each quiet day reinforces patience. Each non-reaction strengthens discipline. Each moment of restraint builds confidence. Over time, this creates an invisible edge. You're less reactive, more deliberate, emotionally stable, not because you try harder, but because you hear less. And in a world addicted to noise, silence becomes a competitive advantage. At its core, this isn't about money. It's about how humans relate to time. Noise collapses time into moments. Silence stretches time into meaning. When you slow down, you realize something unsettling. Most financial mistakes don't come from lack of knowledge, they come from lack of patience. And patience can't survive in constant noise. The ancient philosophers knew this. They valued retreat, reflection, distance. Not because they rejected the world, but because they understood it required perspective. Money is the same. You don't master it by watching it constantly, you master it by stepping back. True wealth isn't frantic, it's composed. It doesn't ask for attention, it waits, and so must you. So here's the quiet truth. Financial clarity doesn't come from doing more, or knowing more, or reacting faster. It comes from subtracting noise, from choosing fewer inputs, fewer opinions, fewer emotional swings, from allowing silence to do its work. Because in silence, fear softens. In silence, time stretches. In silence, patience returns. And patience is where wealth grows, not loudly, not urgently, but steadily. In the end, true wealth isn't counted. It's felt in silence. If you enjoy calm reflections about wealth, psychology, and long-term thinking, subscribe to Quiet Money for more. And until next time, choose clarity over noise.